Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Pursuing Horizons podcast. Today, Rob and I are diving into a little bit of a taboo topic. We're diving into adult content, the consumption of it, and we're talking about instant gratification in today's modern society. And we're diving into many things, negatives, some positives too. It's going to be a good talk.
Man, here we are. We've been talking about this for a long time, and I think that maybe like this might be one of the first conversations we had at the gym back in the day that kind of ignited the idea to maybe have something like this. Yeah, like you said, man, it's a polarizing subject, and I just want to really like anyone listening. We are not here to judge or tell you what is good or bad. There are no lines drawn in the sand here. This is about having an open discussion and things we've witnessed. We both have some experience in this that could probably shed some light. And like anything we do with our pod here, it's just for the pursuit of what can make you the best possible version of yourself. So, should we just launch right into it here?
No better way.
Haha. So, we're going to be calling this adult content through this as, using the other words for this kind of material. Can flag, get banned, that kind of thing. So we're going to be as like, when you hear adult content, you know what we're talking about. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I feel like there are different times in my life where if someone would have brought this up, I would have laughed at the thought, being like, what do you mean? Isn't this good for everybody? And like Bryce said, like we've done enough investigations into this and read enough material, lived enough experience that I think you can find that there are, while I fall on more of the negative effects of it, there are, in moderation, some positives to that. So now let's be clear. There are two parts of this. There's the visual component of consuming that material, and there's also your interaction with it as well. And
Yeah.
like anything, too much of something good is going to probably not be the best anymore. Now, over the time, and I'm going to be talking all over the place here. So we'll really look at today's as just an open conversation on like a subject that is starting to make headway, but still, like you said, taboo. The game has changed. When I was growing up in the 90s, going through puberty and all that stuff, you had to like dig through like someone's friends like parents magazines and maybe they had something and it was like you're discovering your body and stuff. And I am all for like people figuring out sexuality, doing all their things, exploration in a safe way, as long as you're not hurting people. Like hell yeah, like do you. But we live in a time now where you are 1/2 second away from seeing absolutely anything, from very, we'll call it entry level, to very extreme stuff. And that's not a judgment at all. But I think what we're really going to get into here is the chronic use of adult material and your interactions with it to get that dopamine hit, because that's what this really is at the end of the day. So before we dig in, I think I'm just going to hit, and I broke this down here for us. Just some good on the negative side of overuse, and that's what I'm really going to be talking about on the negative side, is like any addiction, too much and what that can do. And I'm going to talk from the scientific side, and we're going to talk from more of the esoteric kind of spiritual side too, and how they can work together. And we'll also hit some of the positives on that side. And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't say that on that positive side of things, that's going to be very much coming from a place of moderation, of course. So with all that said, going into this, I feel like we're like, my heart's pounding here, even just like kind of getting going talking about it. Just shed some light in the background. I definitely interacted with this material in abundance at different parts of my life, and never really gave two thoughts to what after effects, long-term effects could be. And I've also spent some time in the OnlyFans industry exploring what that looked like. And again, doing adult content stuff, you could say, in there. I, at the time, really, really felt it was a benefit in my life. And, things have changed. And I kind of see that it didn't work out the way I wanted it to. And anybody involved in the industry or anything like that, and I support everybody's right to go make a living as long as you're not hurting people.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. So
Yeah.
we know with everything, when we're dopamine chasing, whether it's adult content, whether it's smoking cigarettes, drinking, we're telling our brain, okay, I have this craving for something and this is how soon I can get it. And everything now is about how how soon and how convenient and how excess I can get of that. So, like we said, you're a click away from viewing anything. But does your brain know that this is happening in front of you and not real life? And I kind of want to just segue right into that.
Yeah, no, and I think this is a really important talking piece too. And like, um, first of all, I think it's great that you shared your experience here as well. And I think like just for some clarification, like over COVID, it was something that I really battled with too. And I think that's what really drew us to having this conversation as well, because I was also consuming it in an excessive amount during COVID with a ton of extra time. And yeah, I don't think people truly understand the effects of it until you've been consuming it for a long period of time. And then it starts to like ripple and compound into like every aspect of your life. Especially just like the stuff that you talked about today. And I think it's good that we're diving into this because it is kind of taboo, but I wish that it wasn't.
Yeah. I so wish that it wasn't. And I think we'll get to that point. Like we get comfortable with everything. It's just it is like sex and all that stuff has always been viewed as, there's a shame component to it. Now it's changing. It's changing. We're moving forward as a people and that's starting to go away. But I think for our basic society right now, it's still gonna elicit feelings of shame, maybe embarrassment. And then there are people that are absolutely liberated in that world. And I do my best to get to that point too. Um, Getting into, I just want to list off, and this is from our scientific side, just to get something out of this. Here are five of the negative scientific based studies of chronic adult material usage. So, neuroplasticity and brain changes. Chronic use can rewire the brain's reward system, similar to any other substance addiction. It's dopamine desensitization, reduced activity in prefrontal cortex, so willpower and decision making. And let's bookmark that right there because that is something that I believe in so much. Let's say you wake up and you're like, and we see this in the exercise community all the time. Wake up and you're like, today's the day I'm changing. Doesn't happen. I believe that a lot of repetitions of not whether following through on what you've promised yourself, a lot of failure in that world is not going to do anything positive for your self-worth or your self-esteem. It, in fact, is going to start proving to your subconscious that I can't accomplish what I say I'm going to do. I can't do this. That downward spiral starts, that shame spiral starts. Oh my God, I need some dopamine. Where do we go? Laptop.
Yeah, of course. Of
I
course.
feel it's just so wild. So mental health. Now, here's something interesting too. On the mental health side of things, let's say you're having the worst day of your life. You're having not the worst day of your life, but you're just down, and you know that interaction with that adult material, you're gonna feel better. The dopamine will rush. But I started to notice in my life, and this is before, there was this almost dulling of the senses that was showing up.
Yeah,
It felt
100%.
like a filter had come over my eyes, and I just didn't feel like I had that oomph anymore. And whether I knew it or not, I think there was a sense of shame that I was eliciting in my head. And we know that shame is just the worst possible vibration you can do. I heard a really good quote about it, and it's like the shame is like the just absolute disgust, intolerance, judgment of yourself from yourself, and that to
Yeah.
me is personal hell. And I think depending on the material that you're consuming as well, and then I'm going to take a little break from talking so much here. There can be educational purposes to this, you know, but I think on the other more entertainment side of things, if that's not really eliciting the exact situation that you're going to find out there in the real world, and that's a disconnect there for something that I believe is so beautiful,
Yeah.
in sex.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just to kind of like touch upon the stuff that we just discussed there too, like I think a big issue with it is that it doesn't really encourage people to emotionally regulate in the right ways, right? Like you alluded to earlier too, like people just rely on it as an outlet, and like I'm sure we could all relate to that too. You're like, I had a trash day today. Well, let's open up my favorite adult content site and just indulge and just I'll feel better, right? But
Yeah,
it's so temporary and that moment is fleeting and it just passes really quick. And then you have that like immediate shame after because you're just like, well, why did I even do this? Because
Yeah.
you have that moment of like clarity, as we will reference that.
Yeah.
And then you realize like, what did I just consume? What did I do? Right. But then a lot of people rely on that too. And then that I think that ripples into just like other components of their life as well. And like you mentioned as well, I think it does definitely put an emotional tax on you when it comes to your ambition, your drive, your desire, your work ethic. I also think it impacts your relationships, right? So
Yeah.
with your maybe a partner, maybe your likelihood of trying to get like a date or trying to meet
Yeah.
people too. It causes people to be more sheltered because it provides a false sense of security that I think we like.
Yeah.
Um, because we can have like this like fake, well, air quote, like a fake girlfriend or like this fake relationship, right? Just via the consumption of this content. And then especially with like AI now too, or with like this VR stuff that
Oh my
I've like
gosh.
heard
Yeah.
about, like it's like as real as it could get without it actually being like real, which is scary.
Yeah. And what that's doing is and like these are just our opinions. These are not we're not telling anybody how to behave. Um I believe that that's really taking away what makes humans so beautiful, and it's our connection to each other. Because why would I connect a soul to soul to another, like another, oh my gosh, what's that hilarious word? Another meat earth suit out there, another flesh
Yeah, yeah,
human. When
yeah, yeah,
and I understand there are people in this society, and I've felt a level of outcast and just out of step with the world where you start to kind of turtle and just at home by yourself. And I understand the appeal, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But what makes humans so beautiful is our ability to connect. But that isn't always easy for people. And as our society gets more and more online, more, just the way it seems to be going, we it's going to become more and more accessible. And I find, and again, I'm going to be turning 40 in a couple of years here, and it's a different kind of situation as I get older for sure. But I've seen some trends go with it. And like, I have been on both sides of this. And when I was, a few years back, I decided that I was going to, yeah, like I was saying, do some OnlyFans content, and it's just it was just me involved with it, and it went to a place where I was making some money on it, and I really felt like it was boosting almost my sexual confidence, and I would walk into a room and I'd feel all dangerous, being like, I know what I like, how I'm making money and doing this, and I liked it and I liked it and I liked it until I didn't, and what
yeah.
I noticed is just almost like, oh my god, this is such a, we have some jokes on here too, so I'll say it. I know I've said it before out loud, but I felt like SpongeBob when he has all the water sucked out of him. Just but metaphorically too, with like
Yes.
motivation, strength, how I saw the world, everything, right?
Yeah.
um and it changed, and I really started to look more into, on my own like spiritual journey, my journey to be the best possible person I can be. I started finding on the kind of more esoteric spiritual side, which I really am into. So like, again, I think they both, I think the esoteric and the scientific are both trying to explain each other in different languages. And I really just believe in both. Whether you do or not, that's cool, man. That's all G. But an energetic drain and a life force of my life force is gone. You can hear it referred to as prana, I think, for anybody that knows what that
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
No creativity, ambition, and just, I don't know. Like, I guess here's a question for you. We know that there's two pieces here too, and it's going to be all over the place. But I know in the world of major sports and championships, and even recreational sports I was playing, or even when I got to better levels, it was suggested that there was no fun the night before a big game. We've heard athletes like Mike Tyson talk about they won't go to completion or have any of that experience the entire time leading up to their fight. So this
Yeah.
has been something that's been going around forever, and using this, we'll just say retention, or abstinence from that. And I'm not promoting abstinence. I'm just saying from that addiction and the benefits from that. Um, Now, what I noticed when I started experimenting with, I'm not going to be consuming this material, um, I noticed that I every day that went by, like any other addiction that I've overcome, I started to believe in myself more. I started to see the world a little differently, and on the journey I've been on, staying away from that content, it really allowed me to start to connect to others different. And I'm going to be very vulnerable on this pod, but that's exactly what we're here for. It desexualizes your mind from just craving dopamine in a sexual way. And I would, I'd
Yeah.
get a streak here, a streak there. I'd feel good, and then I'd experiment on the other side, and I'd have not a relapse because I'd plan it and just be like, okay, well, like I still believe in like sexual freedom, liberation, all those things. Let's see what happens. And all of a sudden, hours go by, and I truly felt the exact same way from when I was trying to get over other substances in my life, and I would have a relapse, and it was shame, it was guilt.
Yeah.
Here's a question.
Mhm.
And anybody listening, reach out to us, comment on this if you can. If you are in a monogamous relationship where it's been spoken on both sides that we are monogamous to each other, is watching porn without their knowledge, oh, I just said the P word. We'll find a way to deal with that. Is watching adult content, does that elicit a cheating? Is there some infidelity there?
I Oh man, this is
It's
a tough conversation
so
piece, isn't it?
tough.
I would say I'm more on the side of yes.
I think so too. I would have died fighting on the other side of that even 5 years ago. Um, and I, again, will not say one is right or wrong. It's just right or wrong for me. And that's all I can truly speak to at the end of the day. Now, on other relationships that I've been involved with, right out of the bat, I've had an ex-partner ask, "Hey, what kind of adult content do you consume?" And here's what I do. And it was used as a tool of like, okay, well, this is your preference and that preference. And I've seen a positive side to that too, but like everything, moderation,
Yeah.
moderation. But I think
Yeah.
that question is something that in more relationships I see now is kind of frowned upon and less open and communicated through. And again, it's everybody's right to choose at the end of the day. And I just can't, I'll be saying this over and over again. Like, do what makes you happy, but these are our experiences.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think one piece I kind of wanted to add to this too is I think it's relevant to like both what you and I are passionate about and then just the podcast in general too is there's a huge like spike of loneliness right now too, especially for men. And I don't think it's a coincidence that there's also an exceptionally high suicide rate for men too, and also very high consumption of adult content. I think they're all tied together too, and I think that most people don't realize it, and it gets down to like any addiction, like you mentioned before too. There's years and years and years and years of consumption, and then you realize that it's a problem. But like usually, like you mentioned, you'll try to quit, you'll relapse, or you just will be oblivious to the fact that it's actually a problem. So I do think that there's obviously a tie. We could talk more about that too, but I do think that there must be a link with the consumption of content and how frequently someone is consuming it, and it tying into their choice to self isolate. Because I mean, obviously, a lot of it too is like a loneliness that they're feeling, but I think
Yeah.
it's also a self driven loneliness because they're choosing to stay at home.
Yeah. And it, choosing to stay at home and feeling all those feelings, and now you can access everything that you think you're missing out on in quote unquote the real world or real connections with another human being. So, like I said too, and to build off that, I understand. I understand how that happens, and I understand that there are probably people out there that feel like if this goes away, I will die. And I understand that like addictions and stuff can get to that level. I totally empathize. I totally, totally get it. But in just hosting that conversation about it, I I've trained athletes in the past few years where as I was kind of exploring this and we had good rapport, I would say, like give this a try. Like what are you experiencing? Like blah blah blah, give this a try. And again, we had don't just ask anybody about that. It's a sensitive subject. I had the rapport with these people and we just kind of shared what we were noticing. And again, the power of belief is a serious thing. So I think at the end of the day, like whatever you believe is really going to be what happens. But it makes sense to me that if we've seen for so long, first of all, this is like the oldest industry ever, right? Like people, this has existed for so long. And then, it goes into a shame world, religion kind of takes it and it gets taboo. And I think the extremes of both sides of that are just silly in a way. But it's also a quite like sexual energy and the connection between two people is a very beautiful thing, and it's a creator of life, and that's
Yeah.
really cool in a time where we're starting to realize that like we all just want to be creators, and that's what makes us happy is we're here to just produce, like whether it's content, whether it's music, just all this cool stuff. Like look at everything around us in nature. It's creating, it's doing these things. And I think what I've noticed in my life is when I was in excess with all of adult content and quick dopamine, is I was looking for answers in something that the obstacle was actually the path. And I
Yeah.
should have gone, if I could have gone again, I could have really leaned into like, okay, well, it's really scary for me to be vulnerable and connect with someone and then be comfortable enough to then say, hey, like, I'm a sexual person and this is what I like. And the easy way out is very tempting for most of us, and usually almost the natural way to be like, well, I can avoid all that and get my freak on online, and that's totally cool if you do that. And
Yeah.
then I can avoid this and avoid this. But you can only avoid things for so long. And I think being at the age I'm getting to and just what I've seen in my life, this is really starting to become a passionate subject for me. And um, having my experience in the industry a little bit, and then on the other side of it, where I'm just really like focused on desexualizing the mind from content, which leads into what we were talking about today earlier is how do you stay away from this? Because it's
Oh,
not
yeah.
just websites. It's Instagram posts. It's like we know that sex sells, right? We know it sells. And I can't say enough. Like if you do that to create and that's your art, hell yeah, all day long. I am
Yeah.
not against
Yeah.
that. I am not against any aspects of it. I just personally land on the side of excessive use to the point where it's hurting you, if anything, is not a good thing. And on a taboo subject like this, let's just keep talking about it. Let's keep looking into more things and what we see from it.
Yeah, and I think one piece that I wanted to add to it too is I think a big part of it is somebody's just like subliminal fear of rejection.
Yeah.
Like I think someone doesn't, they don't want to put themselves out there, open themselves up to the possibility of getting hurt emotionally,
Yeah.
physically, etc. So what do you do? Well, they just decide to consume content because you can consume that content in the comfort of your own home. You can fulfill the needs that you have, get that
Yeah.
dopamine that you're looking for while not putting yourself out there and opening yourself up to a no, or
Yeah.
trying to create a connection where somebody might leave you or whatever it may be, right? But like you mentioned too, like intimacy itself with a partner is like such a beautiful thing, but I think that the adult content industry has really killed that.
Hmm.
And a lot of people wonder why that spark isn't there in their relationship. Well, it's because it's likely one partner or both are consuming this fake reality of content in their spare time, and expecting maybe that to be what their relationship is like, or either person or either party has these expectations of what it should be, but maybe they're not communicating that or whatever. And it's a tough thing, man.
It is tough. It really is. And you said something there, about both parties consuming content. Now, let's play devil's advocate. Not all of this is bad, in my opinion. I think there are, let's say we have a scenario where there's a couple and there's a great connection between them, and, they just maybe came up in a more shame based teaching about the body and sex and everything. I think that there is a side, what I've seen and what I heard, where maybe as a medium and a third party, that can excite things a little bit more and bring some flavor into it or rekindle. Ideally, it would be you'd be able to do the work to get there. But if this is a stepping stone and then not always relied on, then I would have a hard time saying, hey, like that's a bad thing. I don't know if I would be able to land on a don't do that kind of thing. I would always say do the work for sure, but if this is the stepping stone to get you to do the work, then hell yeah. And it's almost fits that harm reduction model. Now let's talk about some of the scientific and esoteric kind of sides on the pro
Sure.
use of
Yeah.
adult content
I think it's
and
good to talk about that too.
yeah, exactly. And we'll say it in the sense of like this is coming from a place of moderation, not excess. So,
And also
sexual,
scientific
yeah,
research.
and scientific research. Yeah, so
Yes.
these first ones
Not
are
preference, scientific research. Yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah.
sexual exploration and education. Now that would depend on the kind of content you're consuming. There are I know people that are creators that really try to do sexual education through that kind of stuff. That is going to be more realistic to. I mean, everybody's different, so like whatever your thing is, you'll find something that's going to relate to on there. So as a teaching tool, sure, there's a positive side there. Again, depending on a lot of factors, I think too.
Yeah.
Stress relief and mood regulation. Now, that is kind of the whole thing right there, and probably why this whole thing exists, other than our own human like libido nature, is I have had it be a very positive stress relief in my life when I was younger. And like anything in my life that offered relief from stress or uncomfortable feelings that I wasn't able to deal with when I was younger, it becomes an everyday thing and then it becomes an issue where it's controlling my day more than the problem. I think I've seen it be great for like breaking a cycle because you're gonna feel good for a second, but you're telling your brain this awful feeling that I've experienced. Now me choosing this content has fixed it. So there's gonna be a pathway that's instantly established there to say, oh, that's the way to go. That's the way to go. And I fell
Yeah.
for that a million times.
Yeah.
And substitute for risky behavior. That's interesting. That is interesting. So I I have a hard time landing initially on that not being a benefit. Like let's say you got some thoughts in your head that you don't feel comfortable communicating, and you can pop online, find a community, and maybe it takes off. But like anything, here's the thing: if it's a this is tough. This is a tough one. Take over,
Depends on
Matt. What do
the
you think?
I think it depends on the context of like what would be the context of the situation as to what we're looking at of like
Okay.
being that risky behavior. So I think it depends on like what the intent is behind the act and what the act actually is for us to
Yeah,
be like,
I
okay,
have an
yes or
example.
no. Because again, like if it's more like on the, I don't know, emotional cheating or the cheating side of things, I think that's a whole different ball game. But I think like if it's, yeah, again, right? I
Okay.
think it just depends on context.
Okay, let's build that context a little bit here as we can feel our uncomfortableness get. Let's just like totally face it
I'm
here.
channeling this. Oh yeah.
Yeah, let's totally face it. So, let's say okay, I think if we did a survey of 100 couples and they were informed, this is awful. I hope this never happens, but they were informed that their partner was being unfaithful to them, but it was adult content or in person with someone else. I think 100 of those 100 people would be more comfortable with the adult content,
Of
right?
course. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that then would be harm reduction in my opinion. So if you're like, oh my god, all I can think about is being unfaithful, blah blah blah, there's probably a lot of other factors there that you should address. It doesn't mean you're a bad person, but there's a lot of other factors that you should address. One, talking to your partner for sure, and communication and just understanding. But if it's feeling like this is bad, then sure, as a harm reduction model, one off there, and I bet you might have some clarity. Maybe that's shame masked. I don't know. I could probably say that I would put that side of it on the okay, that in a harm reduction model. Ideally, in my opinion, building to more healthy outlets, but in almost like someone would use an Ativan in a crisis situation, let's say, to calm down. Not relied on all the time, but here, you know,
Yeah.
I think that would be less.
I mean, if we're comparing those two, then yes, I would bet that what you mentioned there, if we're looking at the consumption of content versus the official act of doing something, obviously the consumption of content would be the lesser of the two, right? I would say, because obviously
Yeah.
going out and actually doing said act would be a lot more infringing upon trust.
Harmful too. Yeah, and yeah, very much so. Um, I also have had people communicate to me in their life that that has been a big savior for them. Now, I would then argue back, like, hey, maybe it's the relationship itself, not you,
Yeah,
the system here, and
yeah,
there's a million ways to go. But
yeah.
um, let's again really drive home the point here that like none of this is like, hey, this is awful and bad. I find myself falling more to that side as I age in my own experience, but that's just my own experience with anything in excess. This is just a real hot topic and something that I worry about for the disconnection of society and everything
Me
there
too.
too.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, it's I feel almost like my heart pounding faster talking about it, and I've gotten very very comfortable talking about these things in my life, but almost for people listening that had never, I remember the first time I heard anybody say anything against this, I was like, it's like when someone puts a mirror up to you. I was like, what do you mean? Like, no way, like you're crazy. So it's a polarizing subject, and again, I really want to like communicate, like let's keep a conversation. So whether you're commenting with us, messaging us, like I would love to know like what this experience has been like for you, how it's manifested. Because again, we're not saying good or bad. We're just saying here's all the things. Um, you want to speak a little bit to just dopamine chasing and quick, fast reward and how that could be detrimental.
Yeah, so I think the dopamine chasing actually this ties in nicely to what I was going to talk to you about, anyways. And I think a good thing to bring up here is maybe a practice that you could do if you are trying to reduce how much content you're consuming or whatever it may be. I was reading a book a while back, and this tied more into like emotional eating, or this tied more into like that kind of stuff. And it was actually by a psychologist. His name is Connor Beaton from Man Talks, and he's big on addiction. So he talked about this impulse control drill that you can do, and it's a matter of whenever you feel an impulse, whatever it may be, because you tied in earlier where it was addiction just in general, right? It could be consumption of content, it could be emotionally eating, it could be you using some sort of like some sort of substance, right? Whenever you feel said impulse, take a note and jot down what you feel in that moment, and set a timer for, let's say, half an hour. And if half an hour passes and you still feel that impulse, maybe feel like you could do it. But what he was mentioning in that is usually by setting that timer, you're creating awareness around what you're wanting to do and how you actually feel. And usually you actually find other things to do to fill that time for that half an hour. And oftentimes that impulse goes away.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you are scrolling, or if you are feeling kind of like whatever, if you're scrolling and then you have an impulse, it's like, okay, well, try to recognize like why that impulse came to light for you. Maybe like look at your stress in your life, look at circumstantially, like where you're at, like with your relationships, with your friendships, wherever it may be. Because again, we're not taught these emotional regulation techniques in school. Like we're not taught how
Yeah.
to calm ourselves down and to get ourselves regulated. So I think we're often taught to consume whatever it may be. But this is a good drill that I've practiced even for myself for food, right? Like, let's say I want to indulge in some sort of food, which in turn will drive that dopamine up. So I myself have practiced this, and it does really, really well. Figuring out, am I
Mm-hmm.
actually hungry or am I just feeling emotional and I'm wanting food for comfort? So I'd say it's
Yeah.
very similar to this here.
And that's incredible point, man. Incredible point. And I think in maybe even just a precursor to that, if we look at it on like the stages of change kind of thing, I know that anytime I've tried to, let's say, get something out of my life or improve in a growth area, if I don't have that emotional attachment behind it, and we have like majority of people listening to this in the fitness community, if I don't have that emotional attachment, we know like it's not going to work. You're not going to do it. You're going to phase out of the system, or we're going to have to really be reliant on your coach through it. And I tell any clients I work with or any consults I have, like, you got to want this as bad as I want this for you. You need to want it 50 times more, 1,000 times more, and when
Yeah.
that's there. So
Yeah.
a way I was able to do this when I had made the decision that with I felt that it was becoming detrimental in my life. I knew enough about eliminating other parts of things that were hurting me, and I had enough, I guess, experience with that to know that I needed to find my why, and I wanted to do some research. So I would go a few days and not, and then I would. And I would I would journal my feelings before and I would journal my feelings afterwards. And it wasn't always, hey, I feel awesome before and now I feel like I've relapsed and done something wrong. There were times where I felt no true consequence to it. And I it so then I extended the parameters. I would go 14 weeks. Not 14 weeks, sorry, 14 days. And then it would. And that's when things started to change. And then I remembered when I was trying to quit alcohol, when I was trying to quit other things, that's what really started to show up. It was like a few days off. I don't want to say relapse because I was choosing it. And then I was like, well, you know what? I know that I can go a few days and that's fine. And that kindness to yourself in that moment is so, so important. And then I would go a few more and then it always lead to bigger and bigger chunks. But near the end of it, 100% of the time, after every, and at that point, we'll call it relapse, there was, I, it was mind-blowingly different. And I'm not going to try and sell anybody on this, but my experience was my complexion changed, my outlook on the world changed, my ability to connect with anybody that I might have viewed even as like my eyes only when I'm over consuming adult material, my eyes are just looking for partners everywhere and that's all the things I'm seeing of them. And I think a lot of people probably feel that same way, whether they'll admit it or not. That started to change. And I started to see that the connection with real people and that is there's like all I don't care what your experience is, but nothing there's no digital robot thing that's ever going to beat that in my life, that's for sure. And but it wasn't always that way, and it took knowing yourself and it took sitting and impulse control. And before you even think about impulse control, like that's every day of my life I'm trying to grow in that area because it was just not good in my life when I was younger, and it really put the best of times and the worst of times all the time, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it comes back to meditation, mindfulness, sitting, and just knowing that what that feeling is going to pass and having the strength to do it. And anybody looking for what's step one, and it doesn't have to be adult material or anything they're consuming too much, it's find a way to, even if like just start the momentum. If it's I'm going to sit in a chair for 30 seconds, okay, achievable. I think we can all achieve that. Then do a minute. Then maybe it's 5 minutes. And notice at 5 minutes how many times your brain is going to want to reach for your phone. It's
Mm.
honestly, I feel like I've been doing this forever and it still blows my mind how instantly I go to react to that cell phone or think. Then just bring it back. Be kind to yourself, bring it back. But anybody that's really like results driven, goal focused, I want to do this, I want to do this, that's going to piss you off. It's going to piss you off that you're trying to sit and meditate and do this thing. Just be, like, don't think about it, just be somewhere, be in that moment. And if you notice how many times your brain is trying to throw, oh, we could do this, oh my god, what if we looked at that, oh my god, well, let's try this, it's crazy. It is insane how programmed we are to, just from the things you take in. You could try to avoid this all day, but you know, living in a major
Yeah.
city here, like, check, like, I'm a sports fan, I see sports stuff, it's everywhere. And by the time I try to test these things, even with the strides I've made in meditation and being able to sit longer and longer and find that mindfulness and emotionally regulate, every time one of these things come in, I'm almost baffled by it, and it's so frustrating. But it's the reality to the situation we're living in now,
Yeah.
is it's everywhere, and quick fixes are what sells.
Yeah, I would also say like a kind of maybe more of an obvious one, but like still one I think worth mentioning too is like I love the point that you made there about just trying to sit more like with your own presence and be alone,
Mm-hmm.
um, and learn how to control that impulse. Because again, the phone resembles the addiction we have to the phone, but the whole point of that too is just learning to say no to yourself,
Mm-hmm.
which I think directly correlates to everything we're discussing here today. But I think also when it comes to just like content, like remember, you are the one that controls your algorithm.
Yeah.
So if you're seeing a bunch of content you don't want to be seen, unfollow people, block people if you need to, right? Like, or just go fill up your algorithm with stuff that you want to be seen. And it's a matter of
Yeah.
liking stuff, commenting on stuff, engaging with content. Because again, there's going to be obviously random stuff that comes up still, but I do think that we do have more control of what we're choosing to consume. And it's just a matter of trying to actively fill your algorithm and your content up with stuff that you want to see. And that doesn't make you feel bad about yourself or make you feel
Yeah.
like weakness, I guess, right?
And oh, I couldn't agree with any of that more. And another part of that being that anyone creating content that is making you feel a certain way, that's not their fault either, you know? Like I believe in any, like, we are in the fitness world where we see bodies all the time, and I advocate for that because I believe that when other impulses are under control and sexual health is in order, that you can view that for the art it is and not for like, oh my god, that's going to drive me to my laptop, because then you're just blaming everybody else, right? Like that, these feelings that you're going to, and that's why I believe so much in sitting in that moment, because when you sit in that moment, you're going to see exactly how you are. And once you see how you are, you'll realize that there's something else. There's how you are, and this and what I'm doing right now and talking with my hands, blah blah blah, but then there's something witnessing that. And that witness to that is where the magic happens, and where you can take the space in between the breath and decide. And that, like, if you took someone right now, okay, and you were like, hey, I'm gonna give you this superpower, I'm this like magical person, I'm gonna give you a superpower where you get to choose how you react to every situation in the world, you'd be like, sick. And then I'd be like, oh, you already have it. You know what I mean? It's like we have that, and they do it. It's like that silly thing where it's like, so I can't remember, I'm gonna get, ugh, I can't remember if this is like a famous poem or like a quote from a book or someone just made it up, but it was like the someone looking at a bird being jealous that they can just go and fly anywhere they want to whenever they can, and the bird's like, you can too, you know. So I think witnessing yourself with kindness and just being able to sit, and it doesn't have to be 10 minutes of like sitting cross-legged, and there's got to be like meditation music and stuff like that. I think that's superficial. More what's the quote I love, spirituality without the ability to control your emotions is vanity, essentially. I
Yeah.
think that's more vanity based. But if you need like okay, beside me right here I have this like salt lamp, right? If I stare at that thing and it helps me get into a place that I believe to be beneficial for me in mindfulness, then hell yeah, a meditation object, you know. And um it's it's doing like things you love, like the books we talk about that we believe in so much, Think and Grow Rich, they have chapters on this. The information is out there from people that you would be absolutely shocked. And I just challenge you, if you're at a place in your life where this isn't hurting you, then whatever, man, do your thing. Do your thing, explore, find out what you're into, what you're not. But more times than not, we're seeing that disconnect and overuse, right? I have an addictive brain. I've struggled with this. So this has been bad for me in my life. And if you're at a point where you're starting to see that negative side and you're like, I can't imagine a world where I don't do this, then
Yeah.
I would say, hey, kindness to you, brother or sister or whatever. And let's find a way to, let's start building that momentum, because you're going to see everything change and things that you didn't even think would change. Your relationships with the other sex or the same sex or whatever you're sexually attracted to, when you oh my God, when you desexualize that, you're connecting with
Desensitize.
someone on a soul to soul level. And again, saying again, this is my experience. I'm not telling you this is the way to be. That major changes, major changes that you were maybe seeking for elsewhere will start to unfold. And I challenge anybody, go 7 days and see, just see. And that doesn't mean
Yeah.
like for people in relationships, like, don't conserve, I don't want to have sex with my partner. No, that's what you're there for. Like, yeah, that's great. That's I believe to be divine. Like, that's true divine, feminine and masculine, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
um but it's uncomfortable, it's tough, and there is so much information out there. Like, that we're depending, I'm excited to see what our reaction is to this, and there are so many
Me
levels
too.
we could break it into, because there's like, I believe in the art form and anybody creating stuff, but I also know, like, the bad side of it too. So it's so interesting. And I never want to have a situation where people are like, oh, that industry's gone and it's illegal. No, because I don't believe that. I know people that have had wonderful experiences in that industry, and I have people that have had awful. And it's like kind of the same experience we had in the music industry too. And it'll show you who you are for sure, and you're gonna need to get comfortable with the discomfort of recognizing, hey, like this thing that makes me feel really good right now, guaranteed every time in the long run, is kind of hurting me.
Yeah, and like I don't know. I'm not trying to demonize this thing, but I do find for most people it is hard and it's a slippery slope to use it occasionally
Yeah,
just to have it be a thing that's kind of like regularly something that you kind of consume from time to time again, because I found from my experience and from people that I know it turns into a daily thing really quick, and it could
yeah,
just be the matter of one video one time on a one off, but that turns into this the next night, but that turns into the following night, and then all of a sudden it's a thing where you've been doing it for the past 2 weeks,
yeah,
right? And it's like, and I find, again, we've talked about the numerous reasons why it's bad, the numerous reasons why it's also can be good too within, I think, moderation. But I do think that more often than not, it is hard to consume that kind of content while trying to keep it in a positive light, because it just the way that it triggers our brain, right? I
yeah,
think just what it does to our brain chemistry, what it does to us, it's hard to consume that on a very frequent basis and have a good relationship with it.
yeah. I would say it was almost mutually exclusive for me at the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I know creators in that world that are absolute incredible people and believe in that, and that's totally cool with me. You know, that's
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
never am I going to say that's bad or take that right away from anybody, because I believe in everybody's right to create as long as you're not hurting people. But anything that you're consuming that's out of your control, and uh, even talking in here, I can feel devil's advocate. Like I can feel it like just in my ear. Like, what about this? What about this? And then sometimes I wonder if that addiction is still speaking up with it. Um, but when it comes to adult material and let's say overuse, addiction can still be a hard word to hear. There is a war out there for your attention. Your attention is wanted by every company, by every person creating, by everything out there. And everything you see, social media, advertisements, is designed for fast attention grabbing. And at the end of the day, nobody gets to decide what that attention goes to other than you. But we do live in a time, and some people that haven't, I don't want to say woke up to this or like pursued this, your attention probably isn't as good as you think it is. And when you sit in that moment, and when you find out who you are, realize that that initial shock of whether it's cortisol or I need something, or that craving for that dopamine, you'll see. Like, I challenge anybody to do this. Go sit for 10 minutes and not look at your phone. Think about how many times you are going to reach for it. It'll piss you off. It'll drive you crazy that something's controlling you that much, because you just know it's a safety. It's a safety in the
Yeah.
elevator. Like, you'll go in an elevator with someone and say hi to them. You might get a high back, but most people are right down, and that's their right to do that. I don't care, but
Yeah.
I have
No, for sure.
my own
For sure.
opinions on it. So your attention is a currency, and dopamine is your, like, that is you. It is your bank account. Like it, and there's a war for your dopamine too. Attention, dopamine. We give it out
Go ahead.
all day long, and probably way more than you think it is. And you notice you're waking up tired every day. You're doing this. Where's your attention going? Right? Like, when Instagram came out, I was 26 years old, and I would be like, cool, my friends are doing cool stuff, and then it changed. And it's like, again, like, anyone that's like I'm body positive, man. Do you go naked if you need to? It's awesome. Whatever makes you feel good, hell yeah. Just don't hurt people. It's changed, and I cannot believe when I watch shows with my stepson now. It's like, oh my gosh, like it's flash, 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 all this and all this, and there's information up here and information down here, and that's attention, right? Whereas if I go to a movie from my time, now I sound like an old guy. And it's like a long drama story. And, like, it's just, one's not right or one's the other. It's just an observation I've had. But that as we lose more of attention and as more of a dopamine, that cycle starts, right? And it's like, I need this. Oh, I know it's not good for me. I'm going to do it because I'll feel better. Oh my God, I feel like shit. And when I feel like shit, I can't create. I can't think about how to move on from it. It either has gotten so bad that it's just easier to change and stay the same, or it's just shame, cycle, relapse. And insert anything into this that's hurting you. It could be 5-cent candies. Like, a lot of people just
Right.
trade addiction for addiction, but in this moment, we're talking about overconsumption of adult material. Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
and I think for some context here too, just for people listening and watching, it's like keep in mind everybody that like I don't have a good relationship with it either, right? Like it
Yeah, oh
was
yeah.
very much like I have a very addictive, hyper focused personality, and that was very obvious with the consumption of this content. So when I'm speaking on this, or when Rob is speaking on this, we're solely speaking from our experience of it and how we currently view it. And for myself, I tend to only see the negatives because it's never really been a pro for me.
Man, that's awesome.
So again, like that's just take what we say here today from solely from our own experience. Again, if you are able to have a good relationship with it, and if it's able to be a thing where it's allowing you to maybe explore stuff, maybe it's allowing you to feel a deeper level of connection with a partner because you're able to collaborate on stuff and you're able to figure stuff out together, then cool, rad, that's awesome. But just from my experience for myself and a lot of my close friends and people that I've talked to, it's often not a positive thing.
Yeah.
But I think like a common ground that we're talking about today, and probably like a big takeaway from the episode, is like just learn to sit with yourself more. And again, it does have to be like an internal thing that you're trying to address. Like everything else that you and I talk about too, it is always that pursuit of the horizon, right? We're always trying to get better. And again, like if you are noticing that you're having these addictive personalities and these addictive tendencies, you have to figure out why. And that's going to be just by sitting alone, turning off your phone. And honestly, one thing that's helped me a ton is turning my notifications off.
Hmm.
Like it doesn't buzz anymore.
Yeah.
It just is like nothing. So like obviously I still get the notification when it pops up, but it doesn't buzz.
Yeah.
And it's helped me so much because when I let it buzz before, it would automatically take my attention
Yeah.
whenever. Doesn't matter what I'm doing. I could be watching a movie with someone. I could be on a date with someone. I could be with my family or my friends. I hear that buzz. Oh, is that a notification? Is that a client? Was it an Instagram post?
Yeah.
Isn't that an Instagram notification? What is it, right? And then all of a sudden you start wondering, but then
Oh yeah.
you're so
It's designed
like
for that reason.
you're not present, right? It just pulls your attention so fast. So like when I'm trying to be present, this comes off, the watch comes off, and the phone is away.
Dude,
Because
that's
then
awesome,
you
man.
you can't have anything distracting you and pulling you out of the present. And I think like we are so connected, so you have to choose your disconnect wisely.
Oh my gosh, man, I love that. I've had great success turning the color to black and white on my phone too. Um, which like, and then I go to create content and I was switching it back and on and blah blah blah. So it was kind of like
That's great though.
it was just something that worked for me. But the more investigation and the more reconnaissance you can sit and do with yourself, the more tactics you're gonna have to choose things that are less harmful. Not saying this is harmful for everybody, but anything in excess.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
my experience in life, hasn't been the best. One thing I want to say too, for anybody listening, it's like, holy shit, this is a crazy thing. What the hell? That would have been me hearing this back in the day. Take a look at a couple things. I think the world of like tantric energy and stuff like that is kind of interesting, and that would be more from a base of conserving sexual energy. Take a look at the chapter on sexual transmutation in Think and Grow Rich. I don't know if we've ever had a podcast where we don't talk about Think and Grow Rich, but that was the first time I ever saw anything about that, and it hit me like a brick, and I was like, of course, in my life, this is why I'm experiencing this. And if that resonates with you, then take it a little further. Or if you're like, you guys are insane, tell us why. Like, or message us and say, hey, I want to come on and prove you wrong. This isn't about you're doing something wrong and this is a problem. You'll find even guys that host podcasts that I really look up to that are taking that angle. And, find me in 10 years, I'll probably feel that way. But I think for more realistic, and in conversations I've had with people around the world, whether I was on tour with music or just in training, um, there was just a really common theme here with this, and it was I don't want to just completely gender it with men, but like um, the effects were being felt on both sides of it, and
Yeah,
like
totally.
any information we can do to help, even just scratching this subject here, I can think of a million times, like talking about transmutation, talking about all that. There's just so much. I'm just excited to see what people think about it, but none of us, we're not talking from a high horse. These are real struggles we've experienced. I've created it. I've created the content. I've become SpongeBob with no water in him. We got that
No,
little graphic right there. And
yeah, yeah,
and,
yeah.
like it really feels like with this here, we're doing exactly what we said we wanted to do with this, and it's to pursue the horizon of what you believe to make you a better person, with real stories of how people have gotten there and what it's looked like in their life, and things that have affected us personally.
It's taboo, but let's all collectively not make it as taboo.
Yeah, hell yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning into this one. I think there's a lot of great takeaways here. And again, this is all from our own personal experience. So agree, disagree, totally okay. If you disagree, we'd love to know why, or let's have a conversation about it, and let's converse about the reasons as to why somebody might see it as a positive thing, or if there's things that you think that we left out that you'd like to talk about too. Let's continue this conversation. Thanks, guys.